who's really down with the king, right? The altcoin kings. That's where it's at for me. Glad to have you guys back. How you doing tonight, Mr. Rue Black in the house?
Great, bro. I'm great. Any day is a great day. I get to come in the house with Max. Let's go.
Yes, sir. It's been a while. Glad to be back with you guys doing a live show. You may get tired of hearing this, but we're trying to get the algorithm triggered. Smash the like, share with others on both X and also YouTube. Nice to see a decent amount of you guys here tonight. We're going to discuss, obviously, Swift Coin. We're going to discuss also some LCX, Z Liechtenstein Exchange. Haven't said that in a while. So we're going to read some comments real quick. Again, really glad to have you guys here. I also see, Underdog Researcher of the Underdog Research channel in the house tonight. Good to see you, brother. And on top of that, I do need to recognize the super chat real quick before we welcome some of you guys. And it comes from the one and only Papa Kev Mo in the house. $5 super chat. Thank you so much, sir. Really do appreciate you, Papa Kev. All right. We're going to start off with the first comment, and I do believe it comes from the one and only Tim Shea, who says, hey, and sprays from far away. Good to see you, Mr. Tim Shea, Mayor Crypto Commissioner, representing the 589th District XRP Army and fellow constituents. People ask me all the time, why does he get the longest intro? Because he's been here since day one, and that's how it goes. All right? Boom. All right, Ahmed, should you be buying Swiftcoin? Can't provide you financial advice, but both myself and especially Underdog Research Channel, Rue Black here, will do an excellent job of providing you research, but again, that will maybe be something that you'll have to answer for yourself. All right. Brittany is in the house. Good to see you, Ms. Brittany. Crypto Holmes in the house. Good to see you as well. Dennis Leal, lots of familiar faces. Really appreciate you guys. OG Crypto in the house. He says he's been staring at Swiftcoin for a month would like, maybe say it like a New Yorker, would like 500K sitting on the board and listen to the boys' choice or something. I don't know. When more funds are soon. Okay. Well, might be little fat fingers. It's okay. I got fat fingers too. We're going to welcome a few more of you guys. Kat says she's going to watch the replay. Good to see you, Kat. You did bag up a bag of Swift. That's awesome. Yeah, there were some really good opportunities with the pullbacks, right? I think we saw it basically, I think maybe hit 270. So what I mean by that is for like $275, you could buy like 100,000 Swift coins. Wow. I think that was roughly a few weeks ago. All right, there's just a few more. WF Capital in the house says, hey, and there he is. Underdog Research Channel. Give me something real quick, Rue. I saw you guys have been doing the offline crypto. I've been watching some of that. It's pretty cool. It's fire. You guys got another one going on?
Yes, we got another offline coming on this Thursday. We're gonna get at it. So yeah, be sure to check that out. I'm sure it's gonna be really nice and controversial. Yeah, definitely check it out, guys.
Super cool. All right, Crypto Coin Guy's in the house with his Elmo token. He says, Max is the best. Good evening, everyone. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Crypto President 2024. Yeah, make sure it's Crypto President, not the other. That's one job I don't want. All right. Mike Cornwall in the house. Good to see you, brother Mike. Patrick Collier. It's been a while, buddy. The nice version of Shug Knight. And we got Filipino Ice Cube. That's got to be Mike Cornwall, but I love the avatar. That's cool, man. Right on. All right. Congrats to Patrick Collier, member for 8 months. Awesome. Very, very cool. Yes, Filipino Ice Cube. Elon Muff in the house. He says, let's effing go. Thanks, man. Good to see you. I can't tag you still, even if I wanted, on X. I tried to do it backwards with the Muff_Elon, and it just won't find you. So that's why I sent you a text. All right. Let's see. We also got Luis. Hey, man. Good to see you, Luis. Welcome back. And GT in the house. All right. Let's also read this from Underdog Research Channel. Let's support these researchers' time with a super chat during the live or super thanks after. We show support with actions. If everyone's here supports with a super chat, it helps. Well, thanks. That's awesome of you. And I also, of course, want to welcome Beebs and Craig Berg and Travis Anderson. All right. We're going to do now. Sorry if I missed anybody's chat. It's nothing personal. Well, I guess I'll read a super chat. $2 super chat. What's in here? Let's go. Boom, boom. All right. There's another one. Big Max, good to see you, brother. Thank you very much, Patrick Collier. And again, Elon Muff, thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. All right, we're going to get into the outline because we kind of need to because, let's face it, it was a long intro. But you guys rock with the Super Chats. It was super nice of you. And, yeah, we're going to go ahead and start things off. Actually, it's going to be, I hate to put you on the spot, my friend, but it's going to be you first with the Swift coin. And then I will be sharing some LCX. Also, Rue has some LCX, but Rue is going to be our highlight of the night. And before we get into that, we do always do this, whether you guys like it or not. It's just the right thing to do, and that is to highlight his channel because he's a special guest. And in reality, I don't really look at you as being a guest all the time. I mean, how many times you've been on here, right? But basically, I shared the wrong window. Here it is. And it's this channel right here, Black Rue Investing, over at Black Rue. And he's continuously doing great live shows. Here's what he's done recently on the live. Scale Andrew Saunders, what is Scale? And of course, consistently Swift. What would you like to highlight in regards to some of your recent coverage, Rue?
Okay, what we would like to highlight today about the coverage is Tim Draper's family. Okay, we went over it a little bit in a live we did with Crypto Future. We talked about Draper's dad. Now, what we're going to talk about is Draper's granddaddy. And if you go scroll down there, Max, a little bit, just a tad. That second show there where it says Draper's three, I can barely read it, 3 generations of international, it's going to say international banking and trade and policy. So on Crypto Futures channel, we went over Tim Draper's daddy, which is William Draper III. We outlined his connection with George Bush. And the reason why that's important is you get to understand that these guys already were involved in international trade and international banking laws. So it makes very much sense for them to want something like Swift, where they can kind of do international banking on their own terms, kind of. More or less, right? Today, we're going to get into his granddaddy, which is William Draper Jr. And the reason why that's going to be important is because you're going to see a lot of policy and a lot of groups that were put into place. William Draper Jr. had a very big hand in it. Okay. One thing I want to highlight too while you're up there is an interview I did with Skale CMO, or I think let me see his actual title. Let me go to it here. Now, it didn't get that many views because I didn't put like a Swift thing on it, but it is related to Swift because if you look at Scale and some of the people that are funding Scale, it's Draper and his son who fund Scale. Okay. And I interviewed Chief Marketing and Growth Officer Andrew Sanders. He was nice enough to come on the show. And the first thing everybody says about cryptocurrency is like, well, where's the marketing? Where's the marketing? And I think with certain coins like Quant, they don't market on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need to market that. They don't really necessarily want people knowing about Quant and what it's going to be used for. So the is intentional. But when you listen to Andrew Saunders and what he has planned for Scale, here's the marketing, guys. Here's the marketing that everyone's wanted from cryptocurrency. And the reason why it's really important for Scale is because Scale's focus is gaming. So with gaming, you think of something like Axie Infinity, where they brought on all these new, users from the Philippines. Scale has the same ability to do that because of its speed, because it's gas free. The gas is free there. So honestly, I really think people should check that out. This guy used to work for NBC. He used to work for Amazon. He used to work for Arbitrum. And he recently got hired over to Scale. So just something to pay attention to there.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, also, I forgot to mention this, but Rue can be followed over, of course, on Black Rue on X. So he posts things there as well as his lineups and his schedule. So just thought I'd point that out. All right. So as far as our main highlight today, in regards to Swift Coin, you told me before the show you had some more things you wanted to get into in regards to Swift.
Yes. So again, we're gonna cover Tim Draper's granddad, and I have a whole bunch of information on that. And just before we get into that information, I just want to show you guys really quickly what I was just talking about with who's funding Skale, if you guys don't mind. Let me share.
Sure, no problem.
Slides.
While you're pulling that up, I'm going to welcome a few more of you guys I saw came in. And basically, we also have Corey Bebe in the house, GT, Ray Ramirez, Nicholas. Thank you for being here. Stingy Bayberry. Hey, welcome from X. Glad to have you here. All right, looks like Rue has his presented material. We're going to pull that up if you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. So what do we have here in regards to Skale?
So here we are with Skale's funders. If you guys remember, Hashkey Capital is they're one of the main funders of Casper Labs, which Casper is also Draper backed. I also see Draper doing a lot of deals with Galaxy, and also we hinted at Draper being a consensus guy. Consensus are the people who do the coding for Ethereum. So very, very telling that they're here partner or investing in Skale. But yes, I also think Draper owns a piece of consensus. And if we look here to tier 2, Boost VC, that's the one that's owned by his son, which I'll show you guys in just a second, so we can have that receipt. And you can also see here tier 3, Winklevoss Capital. Remember, we told you that Draper owns a piece of Gemini, so he's kind of multi-invested in Skale here. If you take all the connections I just gave you, Winklevoss Capital, Boost VC, Galaxy, and Hashkey Capital, and Consensus. So let's just take a little look-see over to Boost VC. I can show you here. Scale's right there, Skale Labs. And if we go up here, about us, you'll see Adam Draper, who's his son. So we've covered like 4 generations of Draper just in the talking here. See there, Adam Draper, 4th generation venture capitalist. And we're going to cover, I think, maybe the first generation of Draper venture capitalism is William Draper Jr. Let me get him out here. Okay. So, okay, William Draper Jr. So, first United States ambassador to NATO. Okay. So he basically kind of just was in there to kind of start everything off from April to June. And then he moved over to being the leader of the Marshall Plan. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Marshall Plan, but basically what the Marshall Plan was after World War II, America basically paid to rebuild Europe. And he was the head, he was the chairman of that whole thing. So he got to decide where the money was going, where the American money was going to rebuild Europe. So right there, you see a part of policy. He's a part of the policy of rebuilding Europe in World War II. He's having like international trade going on. He's having money cross borders there. So again, when we apply that to Swift, we can see that Tim Draper, had all of these connections from his father and his grandfather. Okay. And we're going to give you some more information to back that up. You can see it here. At the invitation of George Marshall, he moved to Washington, D.C. to serve on the President's Advisory Committee for Selective Service. And eventually, we'll get into the Marshall Plan a little bit later. But here you can see some other accolades. United States Undersecretary of Army. He was the first one under Harry Truman. And one thing to note here, Truman was a Democratic president. He was here with Truman. And then 4 years later, he got into a position from Dwight Eisenhower, who was a Republican. So this goes across party line as well. Okay. So Draper's getting it done. So United States Undersecretary of War under Truman here. So this guy's, in like kind of knee deep in the World War II times. He's like in the thick of this, as appointed by the president. So he's literally in a decision-making position here. Now, I'm going to reference an article here. Pull it up. Just give me a second. So sorry.
All good.
Okay, man. Here we go. So this is an article in which they kind of just were talking about the Drapers as venture capitalists. This is computerhistory.org, because I think we've covered it before. The Drapers, before the Drapers, there was no Silicon Valley. They kind of were one of the first people to kind of invent it. In fact, this Draper, William Henry Draper Jr., was credited as having the first limited partnership venture capital firm. Okay. And the guy who was credited for kind of inventing venture capitalism, George, I think his name is George Detroit. Draper's daddy, this Draper's son, William Henry Draper III, was his student. So they're very much connected to the birth of venture capitalism. And they're going to say that somewhere down here. They're just going over accolades of Bill Draper, which is William Draper III, Draper's dad, and then Tim Draper himself. And then I think that's Tim Draper's daughter, Jessie Draper. But let's go. Okay, we can read his dad's stats on this. 50 years plus in venture capital, and his dad is still alive, by the way, something like 96, 90, 98 years old.
Can you do me a favor? Can you right click on that and do open image and new tab? If it will let you.
It won't let me.
Okay, no problem.
Then he has 10,000 or 10K international aid projects overseeing as head of United Nations development program. We might go over that a little later, but as appointed by George Bush, Draper's dad, William Draper III, had like 10K aid projects with the United Nations. So I know Max mentioned the United Nations once with you guys with Gilbert Verdian. So all of these people kind of are kind of in with the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and big world like foundations like that. So 1965 founded Sutter Hill Ventures, but that's his daddy, so we won't focus too much on that. But let's go down
above earlier. I don't mean to cut you off, but I just look, see that part where it says, guys, look at what it says. 12.5x annual return on investment from Draper International Indian Fund. I mean, if you guys are wondering why, if I was a guy connecting, right? Let's say, for example, let's just come back in the frame for a second, because I mean, I don't want people to dismiss your alpha. And what I mean by that is this: there's reasons why, whether it's Rue or it's Underdog Researcher and so on, are constantly showing you guys all these connections from the past. It's because big money has already proven itself. That's why you're seeing the presented material and why they keep pounding it home with the Draper connections. So I just want to throw that out there, because I mean, I get it. Sometimes people just want to see the newer stuff being posted, but by all means, don't dismiss this. I mean, that in itself, I mean, how many things can you talk about that's not like even blockchain related that has those type of returns? That's where I'm trying to go with this. So anyway, by all means, continue. I just didn't want
No,
to. I
I'm
just
glad
don't
you
want that.
pointed that.
Just yeah,
I'm
don't
glad you
dismiss that.
pointed
Right?
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Max, because India, another couple videos of mine, I know Underdog Researcher pointed it out. No one's talking about that before we started talking about it, but um, India is a really big growth market, and some of the seeds were already planted here, which you can see with Bill Draper, William Draper III, Tim Draper's dad, with India. Okay, because understand, Coin DCX is a exchange that Tim Draper owns. That is the biggest exchange in India. But already you could see his dad was already in India making connections for him. Okay, so it's very important to understand this, because you get to see money was already moving there. They're just building and currently building out more and more infrastructure, just more and more infrastructure. Um, okay, let's go back here.
And not only that, I mean, how many times have you covered the BRICS nations and oh, you lost connection? What I was gonna say is how many times he has covered the BRICS nations, and for example, you know, like we saw examples where the I in India, that's where it's at for me. I think we lost connection. We've had some crazy thunderstorms here in the Phoenix area, especially last night. Literally sound like lightning bolts going off. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a pause for a second because, Rue lost his connection somehow. And then we are basically going to get back into the outline. So technical difficulties, but we'll be back. And there he is. There he is.
All right, give me the boot, man. That was weird.
Yeah, I didn't kick you, buddy. I would never do that.
I know. I know.
All right. So you last left off. I was trying to tell people that, it's like you've done many outlines in regards to the BRICS nations. And let's face it, we were just talking about India. India is literally the I in BRICS. All right.
Yep.
So there's that as well. Go ahead. Continue, sir. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Sorry about that.
All good.
Go ahead, share screen again. Okay.
All right, there we go.
So here we go down here and we see. Okay, here we go. So the Draper family venture capital dynasty all started with General William Draper II, who at the end of World War II, and this is William Draper Jr. or the second, one either or. At the end of World War II, he oversaw the implementation of the Marshall Plan in Europe. Draper had been an investment banker in the Bay Area before the war, and on his return to the U.S., he joined with Rowan Gaither and Fred Anderson to form the first venture capital firm on the West Coast. It's actually the first venture capital limited partnership ever. So they're actually downgrading him by saying this. On the West Coast in 1958. So think about if he was in charge of the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. how beneficial that was going to be to his venture capital firm. Silicon Valley was a very different place at this time. Bill Draper III noted Palo Alto was a little town. Mountain View and Sunnyvale were mostly orchards. Can you believe that? Very informal. So they literally kind of built Silicon Valley from the ground up. Okay, so just keep this in mind. From their own family's admission, he oversaw the Marshall Plan in Europe. Okay, so let's go back over here.
Rue?
Yep.
Is it okay if I share something with you real quick?
Sure.
All right. So it's just kind of like my own little brief discovery. All right. So, guys, he was talking about Rowan Gaither. Here's just something to think about. All right. A little bit of emphasis. I'm not trying to steal the show from Rue, but he even has me going down the rabbit hole sometimes. So check this out for yourself. This is really, in my opinion, something else. Because, we talk about blockchain. We talk about like some of these ones are like part of the assembly line of Web3, right? No pun intended. Check this out. Here's a little history for you. When you pull up, for example, Horace Rowan Gaither Jr., right? Well, all this stuff that, Rue found in regards to World War II and post-World War II, you will see here some extra connections. So, for one, he was a San Francisco attorney. He was an investment banker, like Rue pointed out. He was also part of the Ford Motor Foundation. During World War II, he served as assistant director to the radiation laboratory at MIT. Helped found the RAND Corporation, which in itself, if you're wondering about them, I got my first paycheck. That's what really caught my attention. My first job ever, I worked for a company. It was called Checker Flag Parts. It was here in Phoenix. And our paycheck comes from Ingersoll Rand. So that also caught my attention. It was when I was a teenager, right? It was just a job making, I think, like $5.50 an hour back in the day. But anyway, Ingersoll Rand, that's a huge name, okay? The other thing I want to get into real quick, and then by all means, I don't really want to interrupt you, bro. I just saw this and I was like, wow, this guy, talking about well connected. So from 58 to 59, he served as the first chairman in MITRE Corporation. And by the way, if you're wondering about them as well, look at this. It just gets better and better. They were this nonprofit American organization with headquarters in Bedford, Massachusetts, McLean, Virginia, but manages federally funded research development centers. So when we talk about providing you guys research, okay, and we talk about venture capital and we talk about funding, there is a rich history that is underlying here. And for the Draper name to be involved and even touch any of this also has effect on their legacy. Don't overthink it at all. I think all these things are worth pointing out, in my humble opinion. And jumping back to this, if you weren't aware of this as well, it goes on to mention he was hired by Henry Ford II to help set up priorities for the Ford Foundation in 1947. Obviously, post-war, because the war ended in 1945. Chairing study committee wrote the book Report of the Study of the Ford Foundation on Policy and Program. He was later president of the Ford Foundation, and he's best remembered today as the author of the controversial 1957 Gaither Report on the vulnerability of American defenses. So, wow, when we go down this rabbit hole, whether it's, like Rue was talking about quant, right? And talk about NATO connections, understand, holy cow, because this unravels, some people will criticize, they're like, why is it always a mystery? But in reality, here's the core groundwork. So when we talk about Web3 assembly line, these guys literally part of the freaking assembly lines. Henry Ford invented the assembly line. Back to you. I just thought.
No, anyway. That's great. That's great information. And when you talk about things like the Rand Corporation and all of this, and all of this is connected to the Drapers, and you get to know that the Drapers are connected to Rothschilds, DuPonts, Bushes. These are like some of the richest families in the entire world. So it really kind of almost underserves the point when you talk about Tim Draper. Like in mainstream media, who do we always hear about? Like the Kathy Woods and the Warren
Exactly.
Buffetts
Yeah.
and all of that. Like this guy is light years more rich and powerful than these people, it seems to me. Okay. And if you look into Kathy Wood's history, it's quite possible that Kathy Wood might have been like somebody that these guys picked out and helped along. But that's another whole rabbit hole.
Bro, I want you
Yeah.
to continue. I have to recognize this real quick because sometimes I don't do a good enough job of recognizing super chats. Just real quick, we want to thank Somo Fudd for his $50 super chat.
Wow.
Thank you so much, brother. That was really awesome and kind of you, especially even last time. My God, Somo, thank you so much, man. OG of OGs, been literally watching me as a content creator / researcher from day one, even from the old channel. Thank you, Somo. It means a lot, man. $50 super chat. He says, "Is Money Max on this Crypto Sunday?" Right, but with special key guest Rue Black in the house. And thank you again, Somo. I hope you're having a blessed Sunday, my friend. Just wanted to highlight that. So back to you, brother. Thank you.
So, yep. Let me go. Okay. Back here. Okay. So let's go back to Draper, William Henry Draper Jr. the second. So let's scroll down here. Okay, now we got to go over to other stuff because it doesn't tell you the full picture. So we see here the Mutual Defense Assistance Act. So this seems like something that was signed in addition to the Marshall Plan to give more money here. Okay, so it's a United States Act signed by President Harry Truman on October 6, 1949. It was the first U.S. military foreign aid. So here it is, money, right? Legislation of Cold War era, initially to Europe. The act followed Truman's signing of the Economic Cooperation Act, the Marshall Plan, on April 3rd, 1948, which provided non-military economic reconstruction and development aid to Europe. Okay, so this is it. They're providing this aid to Europe, and who's going to head this? As told by us a little bit a while ago, was Draper's granddaddy, and we'll look at the Marshall Plan here as well. So, was an American initiative enacted in 1948 to provide foreign aid to Western Europe. The United States transferred 13.3 billion. At 33, that's quite the number there. So 13.3 billion, equivalent to 173 billion in 2023 in economic recovery programs to Western Europe and economies after the end of World War II. So let me tell you the committee that Draper put together to do this. I'm going to bring that tab up. Just give me a second here.
No problem.
So we already see with Mr. Gaither there, they're connected to Ford. We're also going to see here they're connected to Dodge as well. So seems like they had a pretty big presence here in the Detroit area, the birth of cars. But of course, with World War II, we know that GM and Ford did do things where they sold vehicles and stuff to both sides.
Knowing that, guys, if this is your first time tuning in, Rue is from Detroit. So there you go.
Yes, indeed. So when I hear the names Ford and Dodge, I really it really takes me back to my roots there in Detroit. Sorry, this is taking forever to load. I don't know why. Okay, here we are. It's loading finally.
No worries.
Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Share this time. So, Draper Committee was a partisan committee created in October 1958 by Dwight Eisenhower to undertake a completely independent, objective, and nonpartisan analysis of military assistance aspects of the 1948 Mutual Defense Act. So, the way this is written, it seems as if they're providing like overseeing if everything was spent right, but it seems to me like this was the actual committee that did the spending. Um, so you can see here William Henry Draper Jr., board chairman of the Mexican Light and Power Company, which I went and looked them up. We might not talk about them today, but they're a Canadian-owned Mexican light and power company. So a Canadian-owned company that controls light and power in Mexico, if you can believe that. But that's what it is.
Wow.
Dillian Anderson, Houston lawyer, one-time presidential national security advisor. Joseph M. Dodge, Detroit banker, one-time budget director. I'm sure related to the Dodge family. When you think of, the Dodge trucks, the Dodge Ram, and all of that. Alfred Maximilian Grunther, Marx Leva, John J. McCloy, George C. McGahee, and some other names here. So these guys were responsible for all that money, and in doing that, they had to work with the Export-Import Bank of the United States. Now, understand, this is like the actual, factual, true Bank of America, like the for real Bank of America. So Export-Import Bank of the United States is the official credit export agency of the United States federal government, operating as a wholly owned federal government corporation. The bank assists in financing and facilitating U.S. exports of goods and services. Okay, particularly when private sector lenders are unable or unwilling to provide financing. So they're providing literally American funds to oversee stuff. And just to kind of further drive that point home, the Export-Import Bank was established in 1934 as the Export-Import Bank of Washington. So Washington, District of Columbia. So literally, this is the Bank of America. By executive order of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his stated goal was to aid in financing and to facilitate exports and imports and the exchange of commodities, cryptocurrencies. So early on, Draper and Draper's father, or Draper's grandfather and Draper's father, were involved in the bank that controls the exchange of export, imports, and commodities between the United States and other nations or agencies of nationals thereof. Okay. Now, if we scroll down, what we're going to see here is post-World War II Reconstruction and the Marshall Plan. So Draper had to work hand in hand with this bank in order to get things done to rebuild Europe. Okay. The XIM played a critical role in the years during and beginning the end of the Lend-Lease. So a policy under which, go ahead.
I don't think you had that tab up. Just get heads up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
So
we're following along, but I just want for people that want the visual.
Okay, so just to recap, this is the actual Bank of America, and just to recap this one thing that you should see here: the president, Franklin Delano, or 1934, as the Export-Import Bank of Washington. So Export-Import Bank of Washington D.C. This literally makes it kind of the Bank of America. And just to read this because it's important, to aid in the financing and to facilitate exports and imports and exchange of commodities, right, like cryptocurrencies, between the United States and other nations or the agencies of nationals thereof. And then we scroll down here and see post-World War II Reconstruction and the Marshall Plan. It worked hand in hand with William Draper Jr. or William Draper II to get things done in Europe. So it played a critical role in the years between the end of the Lend-Lease, and they say the Lend-Lease is a policy to promote the defense of the United States. Okay, so basically probably World War II spending, because this is September 1945. In the beginning of the Marshall Plan, which is the end of World War II, where they're now rebuilding Europe. And the World Bank also here, the World Bank's first authorizations. Now, I know Max has covered the World Bank and talked about the World Bank tons of times to you guys. So it started here with these guys. And Draper's grandfather is right in the thick of this. So at the end of World War II, it was recognized that the U.S. did not have a credit faculty capable of handling the demand that would result in the cessation of hostilities. One of the major rationales behind the Import-Export Bank of 1945, the basis of the XLM's current charter document, was its necessity. Basically, they're saying this necessity to reconstruct Europe, to dramatically increase XIM's lending capacity to adequately respond to Europe's post-war reconstruction needs. Okay, so basically, the Import-Export Bank of 1945 increased lending authority from 750 million to 3.5 billion. And of course, we saw over in the other Wikipedia article about the Marshall Plan, they actually said it was 13.3 billion. So whether it was 13.3 billion or 3.5 billion, that was a ton of money in this time. Okay. Scroll down here. So after the Marshall Plan, where they basically offered credit to France, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, Turkey, Czechoslovakia, Finland, Italy, Ethiopia, Greece, Poland, and Austria, they all agreed to purchase equipment, facilities, and services from the United States. So basically, all the different guys that you're hearing about, like, then this makes the whole and total a lot of sense. Like the Rand Corporation, the Ford, Dodge, and GM, all of these guys are getting paid to rebuild Europe after this war. The financing, and of course, Draper the second had his own venture capital firm, so he's getting paid to build these businesses to rebuild Europe. The financing was designed to aid and reconstruct nations and repair their import-export capability. Again, like kind of cross-border payments, right? Through the purchase of new machinery, currency exchange, there it is right there, and improvements and repairs to infrastructure and transportation systems. Okay, so that's it right there. But now if we kind of bring this forward, and I talked about this a lot on a Crypto Futures channel, but let's go ahead and talk about it here because I think it's going to kind of really bring everything home. William Draper the Third, which is Draper's actual father. Let's bring him up here. So he worked hand in hand with George Bush, and the end's going to come the Import-Export Bank. Okay, again, because William Draper III ends up becoming president of the Import-Export Bank. So already you can see that his father worked with the Import-Export Bank through the Marshall Plan.
You don't mind pulling that up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's coming. I'm sorry, it's taking
forever.
forever.
My bad. I just
load.
wanted to make sure, because I don't.
Thank you. Yeah,
no problem.
Here, let me. I think it'd be quicker just to pull it up myself. Okay, it's not doing it. Let me see here. I'll just type it in. So both William Draper III and George Bush were members of Skull and Bones, which he puts in the Wikipedia here. This is not me. It's just what the Wikipedia says about him here, which you'll see. We have it loaded now. So he attended Yale University with President George H.W. Bush and graduated in 1950, the year after Bush, and is a member of Skull and Bones. So here we see administrator of the United Nations Development Program. And that other article kind of touched on it, that he had like 10K programs where he provided aid to folks. So here's that part where I was telling you he was working with George DeWitt, who actually is credited with starting the venture capital industry. So let me read that. Upon returning to the United States, because he served in the Korean War, he attended Harvard Business School and studied under Professor George DeWitt, who is often credited with starting the venture capital industry. So William Henry Draper's father was credited with the first limited partnership venture capital thing. But a couple years just before that, William Draper III, professor, was credited with the first venture capital company. So crazy to think about that. But you can see here, he was chairman and president of the Import-Export Bank. And that was the bank we were just talking about. And this was under Ronald Reagan. So keep in mind. So President Import-Export Bank under Reagan, United Nations Development Program, like leader, 86 to 93. Okay. And just to kind of scroll down and talk about that just a little bit, it says, as the second highest ranking individual in the United Nations, second highest, Draper oversaw nearly 10K international aid projects, which they told us in that other article, during his time at the UN and the Import-Export Bank. Okay. Draper traveled to over 101, there's 11, developing countries and met with over 50 heads of state. Under Draper, the legacy programs grew in value from 890 million to 1.5 billion in 92. So if we go over and look at Mr. George Bush here, you'll see the time like matches right up here. Let me bring him up. It's going to take a second here.
As Rue's pulling it up, I just want to recognize just a few people. Boomer F and Sooner, thanks for being here, bro. And we also got April Cornwell. Thank you so much. And Mr. Lambo's Crypto Talk in the house. Glad to have you guys.
Okay, so if we scroll down here, we'll see a couple important things here. So in 74 to 75, Bush was ambassador to China. Okay. That's going to be important later. He was also a 10th United States ambassador to United Nations. So here's the UN again. This was in the 70s. But then you see around the time that Draper, Draper's daddy, Tim Draper's daddy, William Draper III, while he's Reagan's vice president, this is when Draper gets appointed the chairman and president of the Import Export Bank. And then when Bush is actually president, this is when Draper is the second highest ranking person of the UN. Okay. So now let's go over to the Import Export Bank, because what we're going to learn is Bush put some policies into place where they can have more economic gain. Okay. So this is the Import Export Bank here. We're switching tabs to it. And we see first credits to post-Soviet nations. When the Berlin Wall fell in 89-90, the USSR was dissolved in 1991. U.S. companies were able to conduct business freely within Eastern Europe for the first time since the end of World War II. And the EXIM was one of the first financial institutions to provide financing for exports to the former Soviet Union, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the newly independent nations that emerged after 91. And remember, those were the same nations that the grandfather, William Draper Jr. or Draper II, was rebuilding. So it's amazing to follow this back, because we now see the whole currency exchange, the whole international trading, the whole creation of businesses, the whole creation of Silicon Valley with this family. Let's continue. So in 90, President George Bush waived the Jackson-Vanik Amendment, which officially blocked normal trade relations with communist countries like China, right? Which George Bush was once an ambassador to. Okay, this is just the information. I'm not doing anything other than giving the information here. This waiver permitted all guarantee and insurance programs to U.S. companies wanting to do business with the USSR and several former communist countries. So during this time, Draper is the ambassador of this UN program, so he's able to offer aid to any of these countries. Now he's able to offer aid with this law out of the way. He's able to offer aid to Russia and China. And where does SWIFT end up being? China, right? So when Tim Draper says he did a lot of business and he got a lot done in China, that was already kind of paved for him with his father and the dealings that his father and Senior Bush were doing in China. Okay, so the XIM resumed business with Czechoslovakia in 90, and on January 25th, 91, XLM approved the first transaction to Czechoslovakia since 1947. What was happening in 1947? That was what his dad, the grandfather, William Draper II, was doing everything he was doing with the Marshall Plan. So, financed by the first Interstate Bank of Los Angeles, the guarantee allowed Ton Nat Hat Company to purchase computers from a U.S. company. And here we go, Silicon Valley Digital Equipment Corporation of Massachusetts. Since 91, XM has supported exports to 25 of the nations that emerged after the fall of the Iron Curtain. Okay, so, and here's India too, right? Because they mentioned on that blurb, right, that Draper had gotten stuff done in India. The Draper's daddy, William Draper III. So this gets into the Obama administration. So we're going again across party here. a cross party here. After a visit to India in January 2015, President Obama announced that XIM will finance $1 billion of exports of made in America products. The U.S. Overseas Private Investment Corporation will lend $1 billion to small and medium-sized rural enterprises, and the U.S. Trade and Development Agency will commit $2 billion for renewable energy. Obama and Modi agreed on issues that had previously stopped U.S. companies from establishing nuclear reactors in India. So we can see India being an emerging country. We basically kind of funded that through this bank, this True Bank of America, right? And which now it kind of makes sense that we see that Tim Draper is over there with CoinDCX, which I'll bring up CoinDCX very quick. And you can see that he's so CoinDCX launches venture capital investment on CoinDCX Ventures. Okay, this is CoinDCX Ventures, but trust me, he also funded CoinDCX as well. But we'll go down here and you'll see Draper Dragons being a part of their venture arm. Whew. Okay, see. Recently, CoinDCX witnessed an oversubscribed 135 million at the 9 Series D funding round, and the cryptocurrency exchange is now valued at 2.15 billion, making it the most valuable Indian cryptocurrency company. Facebook co-founder Eduardo Saverin's B Capital, Coinbase, which we connected to Draper as well, Polychain Capital, which we've connected to Draper as well, Cadenza, as well as a few new investors such as Pantera, which we connected to Draper, which is also connected to Jed McCaleb, Steadview, Kingsway, and Draper Dragon have participated in the latest funding round. So there's multiple companies that he owns that are funding this Indian exchange that just happens to be valued as the most valuable Indian cryptocurrency exchange company. And you can see their reach in India goes back to his father and his father's father. Okay, so let's go back here. Share this tab instead. Okay, so I think that covers a lot of it. Just a quick hit. We got into more of it on that video. You guys will have to go over and watch the complete video, but I think we got a good amount of it. And just to understand this, think about Swift and what it can do, right? All of this has already kind of been put into motion. If you look at William Henry Draper III and you look at William Draper Jr., the grandfather. So when we're talking Drapers, not only are we talking Bushes, we're talking the Corporation of Rand. And one other thing here. Let me bring up something. Okay, so let's stay. I want to keep this tab up. I want to keep that tab up. Let's go to this tab. So Swift, right? I hope this brings up the Swift crypto. Okay, I knew it would do that. Okay, so Swift blockchain. One of the things I didn't research so much with Swift blockchain was this Node Capital. And I want to show you this Node Capital because it now brings a Rothschild into play here. Okay. So this is Swift. And Swift tells you here, it's a blockchain platform that allows the users to transact in cryptocurrencies. Established in 2017, the company has the backing of renowned investors Draper Dragon and Node Capital. And when I went to look into Node Capital here, can you guys see this Node Capital? I know it's kind of hard because they picked the worst colors.
We can see it.
Okay, so one thing to note, Node Capital in their portfolio, they have XLR. Okay. And there's some other cryptocurrencies here, which I'm sure people might know of. But XLR sticks out to me because of the connection to XRP. But if we look at the team here, these guys, the two co-founders, are former eToro guys. But the guy we're going to focus on here, it's kind of frozen. Give me a second here. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we still hear it.
Okay, here we go. It's moving kind of slow. It's Ben Rothschild. Let's look at Mr. Rothschild's bio here. With 7 years of experience as a managing director in a prominent family office. You don't say, right? Prominent family office. I wonder what office that is. Ben offers deep expertise in investment strategy and financial management. As a seasoned tech investor and a board member, Ben's network, particularly within the Israeli tech ecosystem, is instrumental in identifying and nurturing promising opportunities. So, along with Draper, co-owner in Swift is a Rothschild, who happens to be a venture partner on the board of Node Capital. Okay. It also further connects XLR, and we've been through XLR and showed you how XLR is co-owned by Coinbase Ventures and Polychain Capital, all of which I've connected to Draper on various occasions through like his son, and we know he's a co-owner of Coinbase. So, and those are also coincidentally the same owners we saw for that Indian exchange, Coin DCX, right? So it connects to a lot of stuff. But I just wanted to point out this Rothschild because the Rothschilds are definitely connected to XRP. If I bring up this thing, let me see. I think I need to share a different screen to bring this up. Let me come over here. I'm going to have to stop sharing and share my entire screen to bring this up.
It's all good. Super zoom in mode.
Okay, share.
There we go.
Here's a document from a little while back. This is Edmund D. Rothschild's portfolio, March 31st, 2018. I've checked like more recent documents, but this is the first mention of Ripple being owned by, or partially owned, I should say, by a Rothschild. If we go ahead and search in this document for Ripple, you see here SBI Holdings, which I'm sure you guys have heard before, right? On Max's channel. SBI Holdings, they're the ones who are holding it for this Rothschild. The underlying equity rallied over blah, 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 blah. But SBI owns a 8.7% stake in Ripple's XRP. So very interesting, and very interesting that it's in XRP as opposed to like in just Ripple, that is actually in like XRP. So I think that's pretty interesting. That even further drives home the point that you see this Rothschild involved with XLR, because now I want to show you something here on X. We'll pull it up.
The Mo, you know, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is Andrew Sanders. That's the guy, Saunders. I interviewed from Skale. Really cool guy. I definitely suggest everybody go check out that interview. But I want to scroll down and show you guys some stuff from EVMOS, in which EVMOS and XLR are teaming up together to be a side chain for XRP. So very interesting there. And this will be coming from David Schwartz. I don't know that I shared the audio, so let me go out and come back in again, because I don't know that I clicked that button.
Yeah, if you do full screen or whatever it is, share the whole screen. It won't share. It will share the audio for you, but people tuning in won't be able to hear it. It has to be shared in the tab. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
All right, we got it up on the screen.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Finally found it. All right, so let's listen to this here from David Schwartz.
It's what's important. And that's true. But I just want to point out, in the early days, we celebrated every exchange listing. That is not an XRP ledger thing, right? People who hold tokens on exchanges, they're not using the ledger, but they're using XRP. And I'm hoping that we can see the XRP LEVM sidechain. Oh, announcement. It has a name. I wanted to call it Niobium. I lost. It is called the XRP LEVM sidechain. I know that's what everybody was calling it anyway, but that is actually its name. That is a bona fide announcement. I'm not lying. It is actually going to be called the XRP LEVM sidechain. I want you to think of that as a true part of the XRP ecosystem. XRP will be its native token, and it will be able to address that long tail of use cases. And if we have asset portability, I think we should think, I hope we can think of it as part of the XRP ecosystem. And the XRP is not just the XRP ledger. Maybe that's too much to ask. So Axelar is going to provide the bridge for the native token. Anybody who wants to can provide other bridges for other tokens, but you do have to have one bridge for the native token, the gas token. That's going to be provided by Axelar. It's going to use a proof of authority consensus. It'll have a block explorer, and you'll be able to use traditional EVM wallets. It will be a traditional EVM chain. One of the advantages of being able to launch projects on the EVM sidechain is the development cycle is much faster. So it took, 2 years to bring AMMs onto the XRP ledger? Let's say somebody said, hey, I want to do securities derivatives with leverage trading and some other weird thing on it, over collateralization, blah, blah, blah. You could maybe launch that on the XRP ledger in a year. You could launch that on an EVM sidechain in probably 2 months. And it's much.
So security derivatives trading, saying that it would take, a long time. It would take over a year or more to do on the XRP. But on a side chain, it would take 2 months. So they want to make sure that they're capturing this money. So they provided this as a solution using XLR. So it's no coincidence that they used XLR, because we just showed you here how a Rothschild has it in their portfolio, right? This Node Capital. And we showed you how Node Capital is part owner of Swift. So it's kind of goes all full circle here, right? And we just showed you in that other slide how a Rothschild owned 8.7% of XRP tokens. So very of Ripple's XRP. So very very interesting. Again, we see that connection here with David Schwartz. If we go back to that. Sorry, it's moving kind of slow on me.
As you're pulling it up, I just want to state this. You and I have covered these connections with quite a few things, but a lot of times it's like in the middle of it goes back to Axelar, and it's just like I feel Axelar doesn't get mentioned enough, and I don't cover Axelar on the daily, but I do cover it every now and then. And I know I use this statement a lot about what tokens and coins are going to be that utility in motion, but I mean, my God, how many references do we have already when it comes to Axelar and it being literally used, the utility? I mean, here's a visual, and I'll full screen it for you because I know that Rue is going to get back into this. But I mean, boom, there you go. And it's such an underrated, project that just doesn't get enough mention, really.
I agree.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. Let me go back. My browser's trying to tap out on me. Let me see. Okay, I have to reshare it, I guess.
As you're pulling that up, I just want to welcome another person, Cheese, who's Brian Dowie. Welcome. Your ears must have been ringing, Brian, because, we mentioned XRP. So, anyway. And Patrick Collier, thank you for another gifted membership. That was very kind of you. Thank you, sir. All right.
Okay, here we go. Let them finish it out here.
Weird thing on it, over collateralization, blah, blah, blah. You could maybe launch that on the XRP ledger in a year. You could launch that on an EVM sidechain in probably 2 months. And it's much easier to find developers. So we have to be realistic. For that long tail of projects, if we don't have a place inside our ecosystem for those projects to go, they're going to go elsewhere. And so we should be inclusive.
So, and I think I have an article on that just to kind of drive things home. Where is it? Okay. We don't necessarily need that article. You just heard it out of David Schwartz's mouth there. But now bringing this again kind of back to Swift. We see here this is in 2016, okay? Mizuho and SBI trial cross-border payments utilizing blockchain technology with the first collaborative project with the R3 consortium in Japan. Okay. And I think we touched on this once before, but
yeah, you and I did a collaboration about this.
Okay. So you can see in here that Ripple is mentioned here with SBI. And just to get you guys back to Swift, we can see, and we just talked about Mizuho Bank. We can see here in 2018, which is like maybe like a couple years later, one of the first people that Swift reached out to was Mizuho Bank, right? So all of that kind of comes right back home.
Yeah, I remember what it was. It was Mizuho Bank and Swift, and then the common ground was Jasmy, for example. But it was Mizuho Bank, Swift. I remember doing that collaboration. That was a few months ago.
Yep. And now we have another collaboration here kind of coming back with XRP and XLR. And just to kind of further drive that home, let's bring up some of XLR's funders, shall we?
Real quick, if you don't mind, there was a question that came in regards to Axelar.
Sure.
And maybe I covered this in the past, but I don't remember. And maybe you can answer this question for Dennis Leal. He says, no max amount listed on Axelar on CMC. Any info on if it has a max amount? That's a good question.
As far as I know, the max amount is something around like 100 or 1.1 something million, and that is the max amount as far as I know. I'm gonna bring them up here on crypto rank.or, and it should says total supply is 1.16. So I'm believing this is the actual total supply.
Well, hold on a second. So, like for example, CMC will do total supply, and then max supply will show the infinite symbol. I don't use this particular site, and I know that you do, but on their site, when they list total, they don't list max, or is it just like it just shows total and that's it?
Well, let's go to a coin market cap. They usually are good, or not.
Yeah,
Coin
but
market,
sometimes they're not. CoinGecko, you mean?
no, CoinGecko. Yeah, CoinGecko.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, because they
My
both
bad, yeah.
show. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, let's just go to CoinGecko. Yeah, I think we'll get the answer.
Yeah, coin market cap's the actual worst at doing.
Yeah, I agree. But they're a good reference for a lot of other things.
Yep. Feel free to sponsor the show, guys.
Right? Yeah, no kidding.
Okay. They actually say infinite. It's total or max supply.
I wonder if that has anything to do with like staking then. Because usually tokens, right? They have a max supply.
Yeah.
Is because there's some kind of form of staking somewhere.
Yeah, I do know you can stake this on the Kepler wallet for like 7 point something percent.
But you want to know something, guys? Throw out everything I just said out the window, because with some of the newest news we saw. I don't know if you saw it, Rue, but there's big news, I guess, apparently in regards to Quant and staking. And as we know, Quant only has 14.88 million tokens, and they don't have an infinite max supply. So there is there is exceptions to the rule, right?
Oh, cool! Wow. Okay, I didn't hear about that news. We'll have to talk about
Yeah, there
that.
is some news about it. I've been trying to dig deeper into it and so on. I just got to get more something going on for the outline. But anyway.
Okay, let's go back here to move a little slowly back to cryptorank.com. I guess I'll just go put it in instead of pressing the black button.
You just said pressing the black button.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
That's
kind of cool
name,
because you're Rue Black.
Stuff like
you
that.
Should have, you should be entitled to have a black button. If my last name was Black, I would have a black button too. Yeah. And there goes his black button. He just rugged himself. So he's having connection issues. Let's read this comment real quick. Do you touch base on LCX yet? No. We're still covering the whole thing of Switcoin, and then we'll definitely get into that. But I do welcome you, Mr. Dirkadur. Okay, welcome. All right. Just wait for Rue to come back in the process of doing so. I'll read some of you guys' comments. And let's see here. Raymond Ramirez says he feels like Rue is trying to find Satoshi. Satoshi should be on a milk cart. That's funny. All right, let's read this other one. Yeah. Thanking you for the whole thing of the memberships. Dennis Little, that's been on your list for a while. Right on, man. All right, we did welcome Brian Dowie in the house, who's trying to support the Mobi token or Mobi coin. And we also got Edward Vincent in the house. He says, yeah, thanks, man. I'm glad you like it. I've been wearing it for a while. Michael Cornwell gifted me this hat. Okay. Yeah, no problem. just waiting for Rue to kind of jump on back in. I guess what I'll do then before he comes back in is, because I don't know how long it's going to be. All right, guys, got some breaking news for you. Okay, let's just jump right into it. So basically, it is this right here. What am I talking about? Well, let's get into it. All right, is this really breaking news or is just my own key findings? Well, the answer basically lies within this, and this is a little bit more of the Swift coin coverage for you. So earlier, you saw Rue talk specifically about this particular person. It is Rowan Gaither, Horace Rowan Gaither to be exact. Now, what's interesting here in my own findings is, for one, seeing that he was an assistant director of the radiation laboratory over at MIT. But in 1948, he served as a trustee for Ingersoll Rand up until 1949. But this really takes you down the rabbit hole because it says in 1958-59, he served as the first chairman of MITRE Corporation Board of Trustees. From 59 to his death, Gaither was a general partner and co-founder of Draper, Gaither, and Anderson, one of the first venture capital firms, of course, on the West Coast. Rue has done an excellent job talking about this, underground researcher as well, right? But it says, together with William H. Draper Jr., he's a retired Army general, and also Frederick L. Anderson, a retired Air Force general. He was, of course, hired by Henry Ford II to help set the priorities of Ford Foundation, right? So, again, that reference of, we talk about the assembly line for Web3, man, this goes way, way, way back. All right, why does any of this matter? Well, it's what opened up when I pull this up. So it led me to hear about more information of MITRE, okay, MITRE, if you want to call it that, because what's really interesting is where you see aerospace, defense, and specifically engaged in MIT's research and engineering in the project. But it goes further down in the findings about some other key things, right? So for one, connections, of course, to the U.S. Department of Defense, NASA even, right? And also talks about this. This is really interesting, in my opinion. MITRE became a multifaceted engineering company with a wide range of clients, according to Kathleen Day of the Washington Post. MITRE worked on neural network software. That right there is really, really interesting. Also, telecommunication service FTS 2000, which is long distance telecommunication service for the United States federal government, includes services such as voice service and also voice data, right? And even General Service Administration, of course, for a new computer system. Think about this, guys, for the SEC. What the heck? So these connections, when we get more into it, is really, really big. All right, here's another thing. This is just, anybody could do a key search here. This is big stuff, in my opinion. Just, again, it's interesting what the rabbit hole can open. So when you get into this part, it gets into this key area, and it talks about, for example, it's a research program that has 4 key areas: data acquisition, data processing, system sciences, and even computer programming. Today, MITRE's independent R&D program supports more than 200 different projects annually devoted to expanding scientific and technical knowledge for the public good. As I got more into it, here is what is your aha moment. Blockchain-enabled space traffic awareness. What the heck? Okay. And also blockchain and quantum computing. What the heck? And also this, processes for vendors of blockchain tech. MITRE is a nonprofit organization chartered to the public interest to address, well, all sorts of things, right? And so there's a lot that's being posted here. And I think Rue's black, but give me just a second to finish this up for you guys. And, they have a site. Yeah, they actually have a site. If you go to mitre.org, they are very into blockchain. So all the way since 2018, blockchain technology for government, say what you want. Maybe this is the future rabbit hole we go into with our Swiftcoin research consortium that we have here of Black Rue, underdog researcher, myself. But, an introduction? Come on, guys. Introduction to what? Blockchain tech with specific focus on core technologies? This gets really, really interesting. And you want to know something? This other part where it talks about use cases, cryptography, public and permission blockchains, goes on to mention even IoT. And of course, it's all here, So this rabbit hole is really something. And this last part, they even have recent news posted over on their X. And look what it says. Applying systems to national challenges in defense, cybersecurity, healthcare. Just in case you forgot about the whole cybersecurity thing. Again, it dates back with what? This right here. Because way back, what do we see here? On the Wikipedia, they had connections to 23 member organizations with cybersecurity teams. And as of 2020, including Fujitsu and Microsoft. Huh. Wow. Talk about the rabbit hole a little bit more before we get Rue back on, because I want to respect his time. So, applying system to national challenges in defense, cybersecurity, healthcare, homeland security, transportation, solving problems for a faster, safer world. And this somehow has connections to Swift in the background that nobody knew about? Look at this for a second. August 16th, not that long ago, I believe how the U.S. treats its mothers is a for how we treat everybody and how we can do better, we must do better. I don't want to mention that name because I'm not a big fan of who. Anyway, but health systems analyst Sabrina Movitz is working to improve maternal health outcomes in U.S. So that was on, again, the 16th. Look at this. They celebrate Mitri. And look, achievement over the past 35 years. This is why we're mentioning it. And this other one, because we're always talking about XDC. Look at this. Rising tensions with China. We analyze U.S. Census Bureau data to compare the cost of de-risking supply chains and adding new suppliers versus the shock of decoupling a sharp, unexpected drop in Chinese imports. And this is all tied into blockchain. There's a big rabbit hole to go into here. And if anything, glad to bring it to you guys and also have this guy, the one and only Rue Black, introduce it. Man, you just mentioning the whole thing of Rowan Gaither opened up a whole slew of a rabbit hole.
I saw that. That was amazing. All of that blockchain stuff.
Jeez. Yeah, that'll be something I wouldn't mind collaborating with you about that, or just hearing your key take, maybe underdog. I'm sure. I mean, that opened up a lot of things, because when I saw that, I was like, God, there's so much mention about cybersecurity. If these guys are still around, right? Which the answer was yes. I was like, they have to be involved with blockchain. And then guess what? Do a search, blockchain. Date back 2018. And then what do we also see with Swift? This is Swift like 2017, 2018, roughly. So that is really, really interesting, the time frame of when they started and getting into all this new technology, Web3 and so on.
And what did I drop off at? I don't know.
So you were talking a little bit more about the whole thing of, what was it?
Circle?
Well, yeah, it was right after the Axelar part. We were jumping into the supply, and then we verified that the supply basically was infinite, at least for now, and it was probably because of the staking. And then you dropped off from there.
Okay, gotcha. So let's see here. Okay, let's share this part here. So you guys know, we just got through talking about how Axelar and EV mills are going to be used for a side chain for XRP. Well, if we go and look at Circle, and that's USDC, if we go and look at Circle's portfolio, right? They have a very small cryptocurrency portfolio. They don't have too many that are active right now. But of the like 12 that are active, one of which is EVMOS. Look at that, right? So if we're thinking that XRP is going to be what we think it's going to be, and it's going to be used to move money like we think it's going to be used to move money, well, the digital dollar is having EVMOS, the quote unquote digital dollar and member of the World Economic Forum Circle has EVMOS in its portfolio. And we just got through seeing how it's going to be used with XLR to be a side chain for XRP. Doesn't that just blow your mind?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
So now that brings us kind of all full circle to XRP or over to LCX to conclude the show. Does anyone have any questions here on what we presented about Swift?
I did see a few questions. So we already answered this one about XLR, but in regards to Swift related, I did see this come up, and I do want to welcome this guy, Chris Chagnon, if I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, sir. By the way, I do recognize your avatar. Welcome back. He says, how is a company like that not for profit? I think he was referring to what I found in regards to some of the key findings with Mitri.
Oh, I could go into that. I don't know that you guys want me to go into that.
We could say that for another day. We covered a lot already, but yeah, that'll be another deep dive for another day. And I'm sure now that we've kind of gave you a taste of the rabbit hole, I mean, there's got to be something more, there. I mean, especially with some of those mentions about China, we understand that there's these big connections for Swift blockchain, Swift coin when it comes to the BRICS nations. And Rue already talked a lot about India. We talked about some of these other connections with China, so that was pretty cool. Let's read this as well.
I can answer his question.
You can.
It's just going to be my opinion, okay, guys. It's going to be my opinion. Well, the NFL used to be a nonprofit. You can check with Wikipedia, and you can verify this. So, what does that say to me? Billionaire owners can kind of finagle things with taxes if things are a nonprofit. That's just my opinion. So take that for what you will there.
That's a good point you make. I mean, it's like even BlackRock. How many times have we seen people, even whether it's myself or other people, say they're the world's largest asset custodian? And then when you see Larry Fink get interviewed, he denies that. I'm thinking, yeah, you're denying those assets because if you say, yep, we are, then that opens up a whole thing with taxes, So some of the smartest guys in the world, I don't know if you guys ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. What's one of the main things he mentions too is like all these guys got a common thing in order. They don't on paper own anything. But in reality, it's like, okay, why? Probably because of taxes,
Yeah, because I mean, look at all the stuff we've connected to a Tim Draper, and if you Wikipedia search, it'll say he's only worth like what, $2 billion. Yeah, right.
It's got to be a lot more than that, right? Yeah,
way more than that.
Yeah. All right. So what we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna give you guys my brief outline that I have in regards to LCX. But before we do, we saw a super chat came up. But I want to welcome this guy to the moon. He says yo from New Zealand. Not that you're new. Welcome, glad to have you. And Elon Muff, Michael Cornwell with the custom font. He says Taggy about the iPhone users will be able to choose a third-party payment app as their system default and possibly one that supports Bitcoin and also crypto. Okay, we can take a look into that for a second.
That reminds me of something I saw that Swift posted.
Okay.
Let me
see real quick. All right, I got this from Michael Cornwell. Want to recognize his super chat. Here we go. Let's go ahead and full screen this. So here's what Michael Cornwell is talking about, aka Elon Muff. he says iPhone users will be able to choose a third-party payment app as their system default and possibly one that supports, of course, Bitcoin, crypto, or stablecoin payment options. Stablecoins, the largest of which are Tether's USDT and 0.0% and Circle's USDC, are cryptocurrencies price pegged to traditional currencies, or usually the dollar. Now, we open this up. I don't have a subscription to Forbes, so I hope they don't have a hissy fit. But basically, here's the thing about this. Man, why I don't like using Forbes. Anyway, says suddenly brace for a powerful Apple iPhone wallet update after the price surges. And it goes on to a little bit more elaboration about this. States that BTC price surged back over its previous all-time high early this year. We know about that. And it says after a leak primed the Bitcoin and crypto market U.S. crackdown, iPhone maker Apple has announced major change to its Apple Wallet, described by one crypto chief executive as a powerful update. Goes on to elaborate a little bit more. Apple said it will begin letting third-party developers use the iPhone's near-field communication NFC payment chip to handle transactions following a multi-year pressure campaign from regulators in Europe for the company to open up the platform. iPhone users will be able to use third-party payment app as their system default and possibly one that supports Bitcoin, crypto, and stablecoin payment options. Stablecoins, the largest of which are Tether's USDT and Circle, are cryptocurrencies, of course, pegged. Right? Going on to mention a little bit more, tap to pay using USDC on iPhones coming soon. Of course, according to Jeremy Allaire, tells wallet devs to start your engines. And Allaire went to explain what the update will mean for developers' point of sale, hardware, software companies. Want to know something? You guys want to know my takeaway from this? All this is going to do is going to make that much more demand for Jasmy. And now some of you guys are going to say, how so? You're just a Jasmy fanboy, Max. What the hell are you talking about when it comes to that? I'll tell you what. Research Junction. Because these things about the chip is literally been outlined in Junction. All right. Hara has been going over that a lot. I didn't have no Jasmy coverage for the night. I understand there's other ones, but when you see those statements about specifically the chips, so for one, we already have the whole thing about my number, and a lot of people are saying that was speculative with the whole Jasmy connection. But then you see the statement about the actual chip, and then the iPhones. Again, the Super Wallet connecting to these phones is going to be a big thing, and so that's the next big step forward for Jasmy. It's not tagged there, obviously, but again, if you studied Junction, that is right up their alley, big time. So thank you for sharing that, Mike. And I know you had some other things that you wanted to share.
Yep, and just to piggyback on that, Swift posted something exactly kind of mirroring that. With Apple opening up in NFC to third-party developers, soon you'll be able to tap and pay using USDC on your iPhone. Imagine seamless direct-to-merchant payments on high-performance, low-fee blockchains right to your iPhone wallet. You remember how Swift is a payment crypto connecting all these different wallets. So I can imagine them also connecting iPhone wallet. And remember their big connection with USDC.
That's a great point, man. Nice find. Absolutely. Yep. Look at you, man. All right. Well, guys, we do have some LCX for you here in a bit. We did have some comments and questions that you were wondering if anybody has. So here it is from Esco215. And he says, LCX needs to be a good girl and drop down to 11 cents so you can get a piece. I need some deals. Okay.
What's up, Esco?
Welcome, Esco. And I'm confused. Evmos and Axelar both say XRPL are using them for EVM sidechain. Is this true? Two separate ones. You covered that earlier. Would you like to comment on it?
Yes, LCX or XLR, excuse me. XLR will be the bridge. So it's bridging the two networks. So
All right.
basically, the XRP will come over to EVMOS and, through XLR. And that was the kind of the diagram that David Schwartz showed us. Let me see. Do I still have that up? No, I don't still have it up. But that was the diagram he showed us. I'll pull it back up here, right quick. While I'm pulling that up, you guys can go to the next question.
Yeah, it says that's from Dirk. So they abandoned the EVMOS. That's what he's asking.
It's who abandoned it. No abandoned. No abandonment. It's going to be used as the network in which people can side chain to XRP ledger. So here, ready? Am I still sharing?
Yes, he says they posted that 3 months ago. Okay, thank you. All right, no problem. Yeah, you're still sharing. You want me to make it bigger for you?
So if you see it, yep.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see it here. XLR is just going to be the bridge. So the way I figured that this would work is that XRP would come over. XRP is going to be the gas token. And you're going to be able to use EVMOS to build on as like a side chain. So instead of people who wanted to build on, from what David Schwartz just said, instead of building on XRP, which might take a year or more, they can build on EVMOS, with it being an Ethereum virtual machine. They can build on that and have it just be like 2 months because of Solidity. And XLR is going to be the bridge there to bring over the XRP. So XLR is just the bridge, and EVMOS is the actual just blockchain they're going to be developing on to kind of have access to XRP. Now, the only thing that this kind of brings up a question about is how will this affect the chain like Corium, which Corium says that they're going to be, bridging Cosmos and XRP. So how does this affect Corium? That's a really good question there. That I can't tell you. I would think that Corium and Sologenic have their own deals through Fireblocks and other people. So I would think that they have their own deals set up, but this is going to be another Cosmos like connector that's this completely separate from Corium to XRP.
Great research, my friend. All right. Do you have anything more you want to elaborate before we go into the LCX segment?
Nope.
All right. Let's read this comment real quick. Basically, it's from Dirk. Wow. Evmos MC or market cap is like 12 million solo. Right. Yeah. Great opportunities, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And it went down a little bit lower because EVMOS, they were providing like 5% APR or APY for staking. And they lowered it to 1.4%. So I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for it, because maybe it's a good thing in that there's going to be less tokens that are going to be put out there on the market, so it's making it a little bit more rare. But yeah, I think there's a plan definitely coming for EVMOS on this news. Especially considering that we just showed you it's a Circle. Circle owns part of it.
All right, guys. So we need to get going with the LCX coverage. This will be a segment for both Rue and myself, but I'll go ahead and start off with my segment since you guys heard quite a bit of coverage from Rue. And by the way, Rue, great alpha as usual, my friend.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, no problem. Please give him a follow over on his platform. He deserves it. Let's actually just recognize that for a moment. So he can be followed over at Black Rue on both YouTube and X. Here's his channel. Here's 3 days ago covered Skale. 9 days ago covered the Draper's 3 generations of international banking, business, and policy. Of course, SwiftCoin constantly covers these. He covers a few other ones as well: XRP, Connections, Evmos that you just heard about, and so on. And then, of course, over on X, you can give him a follow. He's trying to grow his platform over on X. All right. So let's get into some of the findings I have. And that basically is this. You guys have heard for a while now this whole notion that, LCX is a blockchain bank, or it's they're trying to make their own bank. That's a common thing that's been mentioned. Even myself, that was one of the main key highlights that I heard a while back. But here's the thing, and stick around to the end of the outline. You'll be glad that you did, because we are going to jump into this topic once again, and that is this. LCX, is it still standing behind those statements of being a quote-unquote bank? Is that still a valid statement now towards the end of August 2024? Well, I think the answer is yes, but I'm going to give you an outline on why I believe that. And of course, Rue has some material for us as well. So people have asked me, they stated, Max, when it comes to LCX, here's what I need to know. Can I use it being in the United States? Here's the answer for you. Well, there's a technicality, but the answer is yes. And where I'm going with this is this. Let's go ahead and put this on the screen. So it's this LCX terminal. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like a technicality in itself, because it says, since LCX terminal itself is not an exchange, a smart trading software to execute trades on several exchanges and cryptocurrencies, here's your plug and connect if it's going to allow you to basically use this in America. So yes, the terminal itself will enable that. All right, as we know, LCX founder Monty Metzger is behind LCX, but some people even ask me this: LCX, what makes it so special? Well, it says by offering a tokenized asset, LCX can provide a bridge between traditional financial markets and, of course, the blockchain ecosystem. LCX also operates as a regulated cryptocurrency exchange for trading digital currencies and conducting, of course, token sales, right? There's this other statement that gets brought up all the time. Is LCX a bank? Well, it says a blockchain bank for the new financial world. LCX's goal is to become one of the world's first, licensed and supervised blockchain banks, seamlessly blending traditional and crypto assets. Now, this was well written, okay? And I'm going to bring you over to this. This is actually from Indeed. And, what really stood out for me here is some of these statements you're going to see in the outline. And basically, it's this right here. I'm going to go ahead and drop it down. So it says, first potential blockchain-based bank and its implications for ISO 222. Now, a lot of you guys feel as though that this is not new news, but guess what? It is to the sense about their plans. So this statement about how, there's a sleeping giant that a lot of you guys still feel as though is going to do bigger and better things than Binance. But LCX, according to the World Economic Forum, yes, I know, eating Z-bugs, states that by 2027, more than 8 trillion will be stored on blockchain networks. Now, there's a key finding that I have that I'm going to get into this outline for you guys. It's somewhat new. But LCX plans to be at the forefront of this pivotal point, like it says, in history. I'm going to give you the 101 on all this, but what I want you guys to understand is when you see statements like this about Bitcoin-backed bonds, this is where LCX really, really will shine. So this part about the fixed returns, Bitcoin-backed bonds offer fixed returns, providing investors with a predictable income stream over the bond's duration. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this for you guys tonight in the outline is this. So much talk about ETFs to the point where that we're all blue in the face. And while all those things matter and can cause significant, price pumps for the overall crypto market for obviously Bitcoin, because Bitcoin and Ethereum represent 81% of the overall crypto market, you got to keep in mind it's where the smart money is and what the institutions are also, of course, doing. Here's some notes I want to get into. And it's like this. Does Binance, since that's always being brought up, have Bitcoin-backed bonds? Well, here's what I gathered. In a nutshell, Binance does not currently offer Bitcoin-backed bonds as a direct investment product. However, El Salvador's Volcano bonds do, and these are Bitcoin-backed bonds issued, of course, by the government of El Salvador. Now, that's a government, right? Not necessarily an exchange, an actual government. So been there, done that. But while the concept, of course, is innovative, it's essential to understand that these are sovereign bonds and not corporate securities, of course, offered by Binance. Does Binance have a role in this connection with El Salvador? Well, as we know, even though Binance does seem to be the biggest name in all of crypto exchanges, you have to keep in mind it's the derivatives and it's the trading pairs, whether it's Tether and some of these other ones. But as of now, from what I gather, there is no Bitcoin-backed bonds directly available, of course, on Binance's platform. That separates it itself, LCX Liechtenstein exchange, of course, from Binance. Is there more considerations to look into? Answer is yes on that. And that is this. Understanding the underlying asset of Bitcoin. This is actually El Salvador's main currency, right? As for quite a few years now, right? Was it about 2 or 3, give or take? But it's understanding that there's got to be more to it than, as the saying goes, meets the eye. As I got more into it myself, I decided to go over to the actual LCX site. What do you see? Tokenized bonds. Well, I know this, Max. I get that. A lot of people don't. But making this statement about a world's first tokenized bond denominated in Euro, Bitcoin, and even Ethereum, and of course the native token does stand out. Because when you hear terms like this about security tokens, this is back to the reference of Larry Fink of BlackRock. Why? Because it says security tokens are based on security prospectus endorsed by financial market regulator, available in verified retail investor sectors, I should say, in 30 countries. And of course, this statement. Yeah, you can earn 7% fixed yield on some of these bonds. How so? Literally says it right here. Whether it's euros, Bitcoin, and of course Ethereum, and even the native token. That right there would be utility put into motion. All right, is that all I have? No, because I want you guys to understand this as well. And that is basically, there's got to be a bigger picture here. Well, yes, there is. Because when we go back to the whole notion that, LCX boasting that they're the first blockchain bank, is it still true? Is it still valid? Yes. While LCX is not technically a bank in the traditional sense, it does aim to provide many services that basically traditional banks offer, and that would leverage its particular platform. Now, this is stuff that we want to hear about. While this seems new in itself, the term blockchain bank is still being defined. Now, when regulations kick in, if you have one that's already laid down the framework and cross his T's and dot his I's, this will create more supply and demand forces. But how so? There hasn't been a lot that's been mentioned in regards to LCX on their site and so on. I'm with you. But you got to keep in mind this. It's LCX's connection and, of course, their focus. While LCX doesn't have the same regulatory oversight as a traditional bank, it does have significant strides in building relationships, partnerships within, of course, the financial industry. And I'm going to get into roughly 4 key areas that you need to listen, especially if you hold the Liechtenstein exchange token. And that is this. They do have focus on digital assets. How so? LCX in itself provides basically primarily deals with like digital assets, offering services, obviously trading, but it's custody and tokenization. And those are two key areas, if you jump into more of the interviews, that Larry Fink and BlackRock put a lot of emphasis on. But back to the whole notion of regulatory compliance. The platform itself emphasizes its commitment to regulatory compliance, and we know that is a crucial step towards building trust, of course, with also the traditional sector of institutions. Is there partnerships? Yes, there still is partnerships with LCX, but it doesn't get mentioned a lot. LCX has partnered with various financial institutions, regulators, to bridge the gap between traditional finance and, of course, the blockchain world. Are they still innovative, though? Yes, the platform in itself is involved in developing new financial products, not just what you saw with TIA and tie-ins and some of these other things that you see, right? Like, for example, LeoX. But it's the concept of this blockchain bank. And where I'm going with that is this. We keep hearing that, and if anything, that might have been why you got into it. But it implies a financial institution that primarily uses blockchain technology, of course, in its operations, hence the term blockchain bank. But by offering services like deposits, loans, payments, LCX will, and in my opinion, is a pioneer in this space. But will they be the key pioneer for ISO 222 moving forward? I think that answer is yes. And where I'm going with it is this. We are not at the point of mass adoption. We are not in a lot of this stuff, basically. But when we get these flip of the switch moments, right, mandates, well, when we talk about who will be the custodian, say what you want. If you have an institutional exchange, that would create huge supply and demand factors that we've never seen before. So while we understand that LCX is a leading player in blockchain-based financial services industry, yes, it's technically not a traditional bank, but the company, however, is actively working, as we know, to bridge the gap, no pun intended, between traditional finance and, of course, the digital asset world, and is doing some things. Now, where I'm going also with this is back to the LCX site, because you'll see on your screen a little bit more of an elaboration on the whole topic, and that is this. They have many different countries where you can earn. They have different asset classes, especially this one. The token itself is a security token, but it represents a new asset class. When we talk about RWA, enter in LCX. And of course, there's this. Straight from the World Economic Forum. I know, guys, I'm not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them at all. But where I'm going with this is this. The WEF still has it posted here. And last I checked, they do consistently post information, and they try to keep it valid and up to date. So why am I bringing this to you guys? Well, basically, the reason for it is jumping into this where you're going to see this full screen. It says, straight from the WEF, LCX is indeed a blockchain bank, word for word, for the new financial world. LCX's goal is to become one of the first that is licensed and supervised to be a blockchain bank seamlessly, where they can blend traditional and crypto assets. LCX will be offering next generation digital asset exchange, security token exchange, and most importantly, even crypto. LCX is focused on helping both traditional and blockchain market participants make the most of their opportunities. And of course, like it says, LCX founded in 2018, based in Vaduz, Liechtenstein. LCX is building the infrastructure to power the professional crypto finance. And of course, links you over to there. Say what you want, look into it for yourself. A lot of times when something becomes outdated or some kind of partnership ended, the WEF gets right on top of that. All right, now taking you over to this. There was an update, and here's what's important. Over on the LCX site, they have where they talk about key benefits of LCX and a new partner. Who's his partner? It is the BCB Group Partnership. Now, this is what's really, really interesting, and I'm going to give you a highlight here in a second. So they talk about through BCB, LCX can offer seamless fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat transactions, significantly enhancing user experience by simplifying deposit and withdrawal processes. Well, is BCB also regulatory compliant like LCX is? Yes. They offer a highly regulated framework, ensuring that LCX Exchange maintains compliance with global financial regulators. It fosters, of course, security, trading environment, and also builds trust. Also helps with liquidity. But here is what I gathered. When we go over to their site, this is extremely interesting, and nobody is talking about this. And I really mean that. If you go to bcbgroup.com, what does it literally say, plain as day? BCB Group does not offer services to retail customers. Interesting. With so much talk about what's going on with ETFs, but this is why a lot of us hold LCX. So for one, if they have this partnership with LCX, and we understand that LCX is a blockchain bank, and we understand that there's this partnership here, then why in the world would this matter? Well, I'm going to answer that for you. When you see statements about that they are the leading gateway, cutting edge, et cetera, to some of these other services, and I'll keep it right here, it says payment counts in a major world of currencies, but they go on to mention that they're leading these solutions for digital asset economy. But look at this, 24/7, 365. Doesn't that kind of sound like FedNow? Yeah, it sounds like FedNow, but not from the retail side, from an institutional side, because they do not offer services to retail consumers. So what would happen from here? In my opinion, again, just my own opinion from the research, that is this. It creates more supply and demand because it'll make LCX in the future that much harder to get and that much harder to hold. And that is why I want to bring it to you. And that is not all that I have, but to see that this was the latest that was provided in regards to a partnership a few months ago for LCX and how it flew under the radar. Well, say what you want. That is of concern, not in a bad way, but a lot of people complaining about the price. Understand this. Price narrative is from the retail narrative, and there's another narrative out there, and that is what the institutional connection is. So for one, World Economic Forum does recognize them officially as being a blockchain bank. And number two, this new partnership. And where I'm going on the last part of it is where it says rapidly growing business providing payment services, of course, to the customers. What customers, everybody? Institutional customers. And it's not available to retail. So the world has entered a new era of money and value. The future depends on strong institutional foundations today. Their vision about empowering a global revolution, they already recognize what's going on. And of course, like I said, mission focus. Aspire to connect, bank. Look what it says, bank. You guys always wonder, this statement of LCX, blockchain bank. Boom. We aspire to connect and bank the global crypto industry. But again, back to this statement of does not offer services to retail consumers. I think in the future, when we have mass adoption, this is going to age really, really well. So this is not a huge outline that I have about the Liechtenstein exchange. But if anything, I'm glad to bring it to you guys because I think this is something that flew under the radar that a lot of people aren't talking about. Are you holding LCX through all the storms of all this retail narrative, or are you looking into the nitty gritty of what is going on behind the scenes? A lot of times we get news about partnerships, but no one's looking into why these are significant. That right there is significant because if institutions are wanting to hold LCX and be partnered with them, but they don't want anything to do with retail, watch out for that. That's where the real money is at. And if anything, I want to get your thoughts and also your outline, Rue. Hello. Welcome back.
Yep. Let me, sorry, I was on mute.
No problem.
So guys, I've heard, and I don't have receipts for this, but I've heard that, LCX is held or they royalty holds them, right? I can imagine, and we also know, right, that the banks, most of the world's biggest banks are located in Switzerland. And that's where Liechtenstein's like right next door. So everything kind of makes sense there as far as LCX goes. And a lot of research I've done, I've seen that the MiCA laws were basically LCX were the guinea pig for those. Like they were just the start of it. So really like LCX, and right away they've been partnered with people like Hedera, Quant, like some of the biggest players out there right now as far as like cryptocurrency in the world sphere goes. And Max, would this be a good time to mention the pieces of news I have?
Absolutely. That was my outline for the night.
Okay.
It wasn't a big, long one, but it was, interesting to see that that was the latest new partnership announcement from LCX. And I think I did see it mentioned a while back, but I didn't jump more into BCB. And to see that on their site, yeah, there's a bigger picture going on, and a lot of people aren't talking about that. Thought I'd bring it to you guys. But yeah, Rue's got some information. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Here we go.
Okay, I just have a couple things to hit you guys with LCX. One of which I think is like very huge is that Tether is now available on LCX. I did not think I would see this happen on LCX. First of all, LCX is a member of the World Economic Forum. Max just showed you that, and how the World Economic Forum lists them as a blockchain bank. Guess who else is a member of the World Economic Forum? Circle. So I never thought I'd see the day where LCX is listing Tether, but that kind of goes into my whole like theory that Tether will be like the BRICS stablecoin, and USDC will be like the GC the G7 stablecoin as far as the American dollar is concerned. So it's very interesting that Tether gets listed on LCX. Also of note, Tether I think also has the digital yuan that they have on Tron on Tether as well. So I really do think that Tether will be kind of the BRICS side of things, and USDC the like American / British side of things. So this is huge to me. And then the second thing here is that LCX is getting French users, France, if you will, French users, and basically regulatory concerns kind of booted out. And we'll come over here and show that to you. Regulatory concerns kind of booted out, I think it's Bybit from France, and now LCX is just soaking up all their users. Let me see. I liked it, so it might be quicker to go over here.
You gotta love that thumbnail, bro.
I love that thumbnail. Let's see here. Okay, here it is. LCX has been dedicated to upholding integrity since its inception. We welcome all Bybit customers with a special onboarding campaign. Sign up, 13, I think that's euro, only for France users. Okay. Cryptocurrency exchange Bybit official has said it's withdrawing its services from France in response to regulations in the country. So literally
Wow.
the red carpet is being rolled out for LCX. And that
supply and demand. Yep, absolutely. That creates more demand for the token. And again, some people will flood it and say, well, the price ain't moving right now. Right. Watch out when regulations are in full effect. What ones do you think will shine? That's where I'm at with it.
Right. Like you can just see it in real time with this, that they're literally setting up the regulations to kind of have LCX win. And this kind of reminds me of like, remember when Grayscale were dumping all their Bitcoin and BlackRock was just buying it all up. So it's basically like they're just like, okay, Bybit, you're done in France. Okay. Like, okay. LCX, now you're gonna get all those customers. All right, sure.
Yeah, it
because
creates tremendous demand.
yeah, yeah, and I guess all the Bybit people are probably just go over to LCX. Um, I don't know, is um, Binance an option in France? I really don't know. I'm not French, so I don't know, or so we'll have to see. But I would think with especially with this deal, the sign up reward thing they have going on, perhaps they get a lot of Bybits people.
Some great finds as usual, my friend.
Yep. So, yeah, very very high on LCX, and yeah, that's all. That's all I have for you guys there.
All right. Well, what we're gonna do now, guys, is read the last bit of comments and see what you guys have, and then we're gonna wrap things up. Let's read this from Durkadur. They know something, and he looks the other way. Yes. Esco215, I believe part of your community, correct?
Yes.
All right, you could read that one.
The chat went quiet. That how the alpha is good. Nice.
Well, thank you, Esco. Really do appreciate that, and thank you for joining us from Rue's community. We're all about community here. Not just my platform, obviously on Rue, Underdog. Some of these other guys that we're connected to, and so on, like Indigo Saint. All about community, right? So shout out to Indigo. How's he doing?
Seems to be doing well, bro.
Right.
Shout out to Indigo.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dirk Durr. And Jose Rojas says, thank you for the information. Oh, you're welcome. I think you were referring to, what we covered with LCX. Mr. Lambo's Crypto Talk. Hey, man, thank you so much for being a long-time supporter, man. Don't ever think I don't recognize. I always recognize that. What's your latest LCX price prediction? The way I look at it is, man, I actually had a thing with that by 2030. And it mentioned, so what was it? The key thing it mentioned was, I think it was like by 2025, 2026 about regulations. And it said by 2030, and I do agree with this. And a lot of people won't. And this is where people don't want to listen to me because they think I'm crazy with the price predictions. It is. I'm going to continue to be me, whether people like it or not, right? But it did mention by 2030, and this guy had like a math breakdown with the spreadsheets and all this expansion, and it wasn't fluff. I'll probably bring it to you guys next. I don't have it tonight, right? But it mentioned by 2030, $100, and I was like, you know what? Look at Binance and look at all the shift and say what you want, because Binance has a lot of tether, do they not? And look what we just saw again from Rue Black in regards to that new news of tether. All right, look at last bull run. Yeah, we're not at the height of this bull run. A lot of people feel like, oh, there's no bull run here. Yeah, it kind of goes in shifts and cycles and so on. So all of these things are worth pointing out. And for me, it's supply and demand forces, and especially LCX. This guy right here is the one that told me a long time ago, LCX is going to be a bank. He was my main source when I first heard about LCX. Shout out to Michael Cornwell. And I was like, be a bank. Because when I was younger, I always said to myself, long before I got into the concept of blockchain and all this stuff, right? DLC. I was like, man, people who invested in banks, like maybe like in the early 1900s or late 1800s or wherever the case be, they are set up for generational wealth, right? I mean, literally look at the Rothschilds and all that, right? So this concept of investing into a bank, and that's into like Web3, that's where it's like, yep, I am glad that I hold LCX. And I weathered that storm. I saw that sucker, my investment, I think it came in at like 8 cents. Came a little bit too late. Some of you guys came into LCX like Mike, I think like what, a penny and a half, bro? Something like that. 2 cents. I came in at 8 cents. And so I weathered the storm, and then I saw no news at all about LCX, and a lot of people were flooding it. And then roughly about 7 or 8 months later, we got some big news about LCX. And I was just like, holy cow. And then LCX became I think it was like my 4th or 5th top performer of 2024. And I was like, yeah, didn't give into emotions, weathered the storm. So I'm not trying to create hype. I just look at the research just as much as you guys do. But say what you want, especially that BCB partnership, and for them on the site to have that about how no retail at all. Regulations are coming. They're not coming tomorrow, but they are coming. I'm glad to hold LCX. So thank you so much, Michael Cornwell. Badass research as always. Thanks, man. I'm going to read this from Dirkadur. Now I'm going to buy bags at Axelar, Evmos, and LCX. All right. And how about this? You could read this, my friend. This is your guy.
Rue is my guy. I try to catch him. I try to catch his intel whenever he ends up. But I do watch some of your joints too at Maximus. So much content to digest, so little time. 100%.
I do appreciate that, Esco. Thank you, man. All right, we'll read this as the last comment. Your top performer was SHX Stronghold. Awesome. Paid off my house. That's awesome, man. That's incredible.
Nice.
Very, very cool. Right on. All right. I'll start that. All right, sir. I'm just go ahead and get this on the screen. Share your channel one more time. Guys, help Rue scale up. He definitely deserves it. Here's his channel at Black Rue for both YouTube and also X. Here it is for X again. And with that said, you have the last word.
Thanks so much, guys. It's always a blast. Thanks for always being welcoming as a community. I so much appreciate it. If you feel like I've earned your guys' trust, please come on over, like and subscribe to my channel. I would very much appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for always being welcoming to me, guys. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to bringing you guys more content. Thank you so much for checking out the latest Hedera deep dive. Big hit, but some key research. I will have an exclusive Solana. Yes, Stellar Solana deep dive, and it's going to be labeled basically why I feel as though Stellar will outperform Solana. No fluff. Going to get really into the weeds of that. You're going to want to watch it. It's going to be in the recorded video section. Make sure you check it out. And with that said, I don't know if Rue wants to stick around for this. I meant to play it earlier. Here's one of my latest. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called basically Before Bitcoin. Okay? What am I talking about? Maybe ARPANET, right? Stay tuned. Smash the like. Been a pleasure being with you guys. Have a blessed rest of your Sunday. We may see you back tomorrow. I may be back with you guys tomorrow for the Investor Place update, okay? Because they have some more info for you guys tomorrow. All right. Pleasure to have Rue, and we're going to go ahead and pull that up. Here's the outro. Thanks again, everybody.
Times by the New York Times side, staying alive was no jive. And secondhand moms down stole old man. So then we moved to Shaolin Land. Yo, blocking the go-to logos. Only way I think in the G off is drug news. And let's start it like this, son. Rolling with this one and that one, pulling out gas for fun. But it was just a dream for the team. Who was a fiend? Started smoking woolies at 16 and running up in dates and doing hits for house days, making my way on fire escapes. No question I was deep for cracks and weed. The combination made my eyes bleed. No question I would go up and try to get the dough, sticking up white boys and ball courts. My life got no better, same damn low, swear the times is rough and tough like leather.